Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 389. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com. And we're excited to have back with us the highly talented and internationally acclaimed freelance artist and comic creator, Jason Lenox.
Thank you, Barney. I'm not sure my ego is going to fit inside this square. You made it so big. Internationally acclaimed, right? I feel like there should be like a, horn, right? I'll waltz.
We'll put that in post, yeah, sure.
Yeah, put in like cheering crowds, like, yay. So, Barney, I'm amazed you've done this many episodes, and I have a very interesting story to tie into your longevity and Lords of the Cosmos, if you'd like me to share it, because it's a great story.
Yeah, let's hear it. Here we go.
So one of the big parts of Lords of the Cosmos 5 was cleaning up Lords of the Cosmos issues 1 through 4. There was a lot of formatting issues and kind of junk on old pages, and we refreshed the covers and cleaned up the books and reformatted them. Took a lot of time. And one of the things that we cleaned up was all the old variant covers and slightly changed the formatting for where the logos went and everything. And there's a creator that's been a friend of mine for years that has kind of disappeared. I hadn't talked to him in a long time. And Danny Zemba is the graphic artist that helps me format my covers and does a lot of coloring for me. And we were on issue 4. And she said, I really don't have a good enough file to reformat this image. Could you get me a high resolution digital file of this artwork and I can wrap this up? And I said, well, that's a little bit awkward because the gentleman that did that work for me, he hasn't talked to me in 2 years. And I actually ran into another artist from Ohio that knew him and had expressed that he'd also stopped speaking to him as well. And I've actually was wondering, like, has something happened to him? Like, you don't know, right? It's kind of like, But she tasked me with, could you go get it? And I thought, well, he doesn't post on social media. He's kind of become a little bit of a ghost. And I had a cell phone number, so I sent him a text and I said, hey, friend, here's the situation. I hope you're okay. Do you have this digital file? Day goes by and he starts texting me and sends me photographs of him at concerts. And he starts talking to me about going to shows. And I'm like, okay, this is a little bit weird because it's not what I asked you. And then he starts to express to me that through COVID and everything else, he's realized that he really does not like doing art. He really does not like doing comic conventions, nor does he like the grind of making comics. It was actually very sad to me. Right. And he said he no longer wanted to do it, and he was happy just doing his job, does some white-collar work, and that going to music shows makes him happy. And he said he'd be happy to send me the file, and he sent it to me. And then I wrote him back a note and said, well, I really appreciate you doing that. And for whatever it's worth, I really am a big fan of your work. And I am actually sad that you're not going to be doing art. And then the conversation stopped. So took the file back to Danny. And I talked to her. And I kind of expressed this story to her. And as I was telling her the story, she said, yeah, she goes, this is normal, Jason. She goes, creatives, people can quit, it's a fact of life. And I said, I think when we're younger, right, there's this urge to like have these highs, like to do the thing like as best as you can. And that's what you look for as success, is that you made one really awesome thing or had like a really amazing run. And I don't want to take anything away from people trying to do the best they can do, because I get it. And that should always be a goal. But I said to her, what's really more interesting the older I get isn't necessarily hitting a high. And not that I don't like to hit a high, because I still do. But I was like, as a person that is not a teenager or like young 20s, right? We don't need to say how old we are, but we're in Gen X, right? Is that seeing my friend and fellow creative and contributor to Lords of the Cosmos just have a change of heart and leave, what I realized is that there's this goal to hit a high, but then there's kind of this background thing of like, will you not quit?
Mm.
And I think that I've grown a large respect for creatives that work on later in life when they have children, when it maybe is not their primary job, in a world where AI could be destroying creative jobs and incomes. That if you're even crawling ahead and you're just doing a little bit where it's like, I'm so tired, I can only work for 30 minutes this week. I used to not think much of that. And now I look more towards the fact that a person such as yourself has done 389 podcasts, right? That I've done. This is my 13th crowdfunding campaign over 12 years, 9 of which were comics. That it truly is the challenge, almost not to speed up, but not to stop.
Right.
And I told that to Danny, and she said, "Wow." She said that actually kind of hits a little hard, you know. And so as we get older, we change our viewpoint and our experiences change, and that's really kind of where I look at Lords of the Cosmos 5 on my creative journey. Is it is a survival of being creative, right? That you don't quit. Like, don't ever quit. And if you got to slow down and like crawl, right? And it's just I'm just gonna get a drop out of the faucet. The fact that you don't turn it off and that you keep it going till you can speed up a little bit more and do a little bit more is huge. Even podcasters, right? So many podcasts that I had guested on over the last decade no longer exist. The people that were doing them, and what you do is creative, like what I do. It's just a different type of creativity. To keep things going for years, for hundreds of episodes, I don't know that I really appreciated that as much till I saw about 90% of the people that I dealt with are gone. Barney's still here, right? So I really think for me, Lords of the Cosmos, it was really, as a creative, was about being a survivor because, one of the people that I really cared about as a fellow creative that had worked on this book in the past, has decided to kind of bow out of being a creative. And like I said, it actually made me sad to see that happen. I respect the choice, and I don't want to. I mean, it's a personal choice, so I don't want to. I don't want to disrespect it or degrade it. If that's what you need to do, it's what you need to do. And that's that other individual's best choice for them. And I wish them all the success in the world, and I hope they come back. But if they don't, that's okay too. But Lords of the Cosmos 5 really is all about being a survivor and not quitting,
Right.
and showing respect to all the creatives that may have to work 60 hours a week and have a family and children, and maybe doing one sketch a month is all they can do. And that's actually really awesome. So that's really kind of how I'm coming at this time in my life. And this campaign is celebrating my fellow survivors. Keep on going, man. Keep on fighting for that next episode.
So I want to talk to you about, as you brought that up. So
Yep.
I'm just recalling the review I gave you
Yep.
on your thing. So let me read this, the review after I read issues 1 through 4. So this is
Okay.
what I said. I said, so a few months ago, I interviewed Jason Lenox regarding his latest Lord of the Cosmos comic book when it was live on Kickstarter. I was happy to see issues 1 through 4 arrive in the mail, although I read issues 1, 2, and 3 as PDFs. It was nice to have all 4 physical copies. Because I remember one of the things that you gave me, the advanced reader copies on
Yep.
PDF form in the first
Yep.
place. Lord of the Cosmos is a quintessential homage to the 80s culture. On the surface, it appears to reference heavy metal and influenced by the artwork of the bands of Iron Maiden and Metallica. As I read more of the story, it was fun to see also inspirations from the 80s cartoons and toys as well. This comes with loosely referenced 80s toy packaging, where stats of the heroes and the villains on the package on the back of the boxes. Transformers and GI Joe immediately came to mind. The comics are set up in an anthology fashion where there is a main storyline in the first half of the comic, and then there are some complementary stories or tertiary on tertiary characters in the second half of each issue. Jason has done a great job creating a giant cast of characters on both sides. I'm excited to read issue 5 now. So, that was like 2 years ago. And now finally, issue number
Oh man.
5. Yeah, see?
Wow, I'm actually dying to get the review of issue 5 because I think issue 5 amps it up to an 11.
Let's get to so let's talk about the Kickstarter then. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail on the head with that review, and I think for anyone that liked the prior 4 issues, you're gonna love the new issue because it leans into everything you just said. I mean, it's
Right.
Lords of the
Yeah.
Cosmos knows what it is, and it's not. It didn't deviate from the path, right? It's like if you like the other 15 AC/DC albums, they make a new one, you'll like the new one. If you didn't like the other ones, you won't like it, right? Because
Right.
they're all cut from the same cloth. But yeah, no. So I love hearing that review. And like I said, now I'm excited for you to review the new one. But by all means, let's ask some questions, Barney.
So, I get also to point out too for our listeners and our listeners and viewers. This is to be clear because I do interview also some children's book authors and stuff. This is not a children's book. This is not for
No,
kids.
nope, nope,
No.
nope, not for kids.
This is more or less for those that are squarely into, I would say, your um, you know there is definitely a Gen X feel. There's definitely an homage to the '80s culture, and as I said in that review, there's like the of the like the heavy metal posters. There's also an homage to, as we said, like all of the stuff that kids of the '80s would love to collect as well. But it's through the lens now of somebody squarely in their like in middle age now to appreciate significant adult themes that are in that do exist in the storyline. Does that sound about right?
I would agree with that. What I wanted to hit as far as a tone with Lords of the Cosmos was have familiar tones and beats that hit home,
Mm-hmm.
but to have a story that's not just a complete carbon copy pastiche. I don't like a lot of the nostalgia baiting we have now in entertainment, where they're just kind of direct rips. Um, but I do like nostalgia. I think a lot of people do. So that was always the fine line: is to hit that Gen X toy cartoon flavor. So
Right.
you feel familiar, but Lords of the Cosmos is different enough that you're like, I get the feels, but I don't really know what's going to happen. And what I would
Right.
always compare it to is if you like a genre of movies. So if you like westerns, right, you can love, and I always go back to like the Dollar trilogy and say that's great. I love westerns, and then you could watch a western like Unforgiven. Feels familiar,
Right.
right? There's some familiar, things like hey, six shooters, cowboys, horses, whatever. Um, and there's gunplay, but it's not the same story, right? But it feels familiar. So if you like Fistful of Dollars, Unforgiven is kind of the same flavor, but it's not the same story. So I really wanted to have that and to kind of have a touchstone for me personally, right? And I think the book does lean towards people that had some of those experiences, but I also wanted to make sure the book was strong enough that if you didn't know any of those references at all, you still could enjoy it at face value. I feel that we hit all those boxes, right? Which is a challenge. That whether hey, man, this I really get that Saturday morning feel to this, or I remember those toys. You know what I mean? Like this really feels like those toys that I played with. Or if it's someone that's 23 and it's just this is really cool, man. It's just I like it. I like the art. It's cool. So I want to appeal to all those people and not have it. Well, you had to have seen this for it to make any sense, and it's like, oh, I didn't see that because I'm not that.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. Thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. So now that you're issue 5, how many scripts have you written out then? So far, how many issues do you have written out?
There's probably enough material now to get another 3 issues almost complete now.
Okay.
We got ahead of ourselves during COVID and started stockpiling ideas and stories when we were all locked at home. So there's quite a few things that, again, it's almost like there's like a limiter that like only so much can get out at one time. But yeah, we probably have another 2.5 issues of stuff ready to go. That another couple pieces need to be put together for it to go. So hopefully we can start doing issues quicker than this one. This one was kind of a watershed moment of doing this big issue and then also doing a lot of work to bring the older issues up to a higher, more current standard of quality.
Do you have there's like a meta plot, right? Though that you have like there is a storyline that you're telling, and it's gonna end, right?
Yeah, when Dennis Fallon and Jason Palmatier and I, kind of really built this out in like 2016. One of the first things that we started with was, how does this end?
Right.
And I've always felt we've got a pretty good ending to it. And I think we're close to halfway there. So if I had to throw a dart, I think by the time Lords of the Cosmos goes to a satisfying ending, it'll be 10 issues plus a bonus issue 0 that does some weird origin stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Because one of the things that we had a big talk about over COVID was why do these guys call themselves Lords of the Cosmos? And we came up with a really banging story for what that is, and that art's already done. So that's going to be the focal point of issue 0 of where the hell did the Lords of the Cosmos get off on calling themselves the Lords of the Cosmos? And I think we've got a pretty good origin story for that, and to be continued on that one.
Talk to us a little bit about also the some of the inspiration of I love the names of the characters that you've created. Was that a lot of brainstorming session, or it feels like some of these just seem like, of course, that'd be a great name for a villain, or of course, that'd be a great name for a hero. Talk about the brainstorming session that went through creating these characters.
So, Lords of the Cosmos, when it started, was just it was a character Bible with an ending, and then describing characters, and then I just started drawing them as pinups. And the villain pinups were all used in issue 1, and the hero pinups will be featured in issue 6.
Okay.
And we did just kind of shoot names at each other when we were making these up years ago to try to figure out who they were. And if you like toys from that era, there was a certain naming structure that they were kind of semi-serious, semi-wordplay, semi-on-the-nose, tongue-in-cheek, that there's just a certain way. So if you look at that, go back up to the model sheets. So that's all the characters with all their names and then scale. So you can get them as 2 posters, heroes and villains, of who are all these characters.
Right.
And some you know and some you maybe don't know real well. But yeah, we got to name all of them. And I think they would, if they rolled onto an episode of Masters of the Universe or Thundercats, they would fit.
Right.
Because we tried to use that naming formula that seemed to be, from that era. So it was a lot of fun, and now we're just getting to watch them play out.
It seems like you have a lot more fun writing for the bad guys than the good guys. Does that?
I think so. I think if you look back on a lot of those properties, the villains were probably all a little bit more interesting, and the heroes were kind of all like the heroes were like the straight man in a comedy team that wasn't the interplay between Starscream and Megatron more interesting than Jazz and Optimus Prime.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Like they were always the more colorful, flamboyant, interesting characters. And obviously, Lords of the Cosmos kicks off with their enemies, so the heroes don't really show up until like issue 2, like in the main story. And really, the heroes in Lords of the Cosmos, and they start ramping it up in issue 5. Like they're basically out of the game, like they
Mhm.
are out of the picture. They are tired of fighting. Uh, it seems that most of them are not with us anymore, and the largest concentration and most powerful ones are just in hiding on a mountain. Like
Mm.
they're done. They're like enough. Like enough's enough, and they don't want to fight. And then issue 4 shows the main hero Aegis becoming enraged and ending his retirement. And
Right.
that's where we kick off issue 5 with him summoning his surviving soldiers, because there's an implication that there used to be thousands, right, of these heroes, and now there's maybe 15. There's not very many of them left. So then there's questions about, well, what happened to all these characters? And the villains are the same way. They used to have more of them too. So we make allusions, and there's some hints of it in issue 4 and 5. In issue 5, it's the Pulse Part 1, where we show glimpses of these prior conflicts. So the Lords of the Cosmos and their enemies, the Disciples of Umex, have been fighting for quite some time, probably decades of just wars of attrition.
Right.
So by the time we found them in Lords of the Cosmos issue 1, this is two boxers that have pounded each other into the mat, and they are bloodied and beaten, and one of them starts getting up a little quicker than the other to keep on fighting, and the other one maybe doesn't want to fight anymore, but they realize that they have to fight, because if they don't fight, they may all die,
Right.
and the world might die. So
Yeah.
it really is kind of an end times. This is the end. This is the end of their struggle, right? So the main story, really, and it's pretty obvious to what it's playing up to, is that the heroes and the villains are going to have one last catastrophic, right? Hammer hits anvil. And
Right.
if you recall in issue 4, the main villain Umex is like, let the civilians cry for help because I want their message to get out. And then the other villains are like, yeah, but if you let them do that, all the heroes will show up. They'll come for this. And he's like, I know. He wants it. He wants it to happen. And then so issue 5 is the main story. There's 2 arcs to it. Is it starts off with Aegis using his magic sword that we introduced in issue 4 to fire a triple bolt of living lightning across the entire planet, with the assumption that this lightning can find all the remaining Lords of the Cosmos that are in hiding. And
Mm.
when they see it, they know that it's time to unite, right? Because he
Right.
has that, he gets to say his line. He says, "Lords of the Cosmos, unite!" And this like triple lightning bolts out of his sword and goes into the sky, and then it just starts going around the world, and it just starts showing these heroes, like like in their, like they're just hiding, right? And they know. And then what happens is the lightning keeps traveling around the world, and then it goes to where the villains are. And then you see Zemba, who's the lady that's featured on the main cover. You see her walking across the city, the capital city of the world, and she's going to see where they're torturing Mordanix, who, if you recall in issue 4, was sentenced to be tortured to death. Or I'm sorry, Psychorn was sentenced to be tortured to death by Mordanix at the front lines of this siege of the capital city of the world, Gemspire.
Right.
So she decides to insert herself into this torture session, right? She just shows up, and then Mordanix is torturing this unicorn, and then she decides that she no longer wants to remain loyal to the other villains, and mayhem ensues, which you're darn tootin'. The villains are definitely more interesting in this than the heroes. The heroes are kind of played straight so far.
Even classically from the 80s perspective of all the cartoons, it'd be Thundercats, Masters of the Universe, whatever. Forward momentum is always happening with the villains.
Sure.
They're always going towards things where the heroes are always reactionary. They always have to react to what the villains do. It's never because it's almost like it sends the wrong message if the heroes are doing the forward momentum and attacking
Sure.
the villains. That actually sends like that actually like it's like one of those morality plays that we were learning in the 80s is like if you're the aggressors that means you're the bad guy. So that's why heroes have always been reactionary to the villains almost. But
Sure.
that's what you brought up is like from character development perspective, forward momentum tells a story. So that's where the villains are more fun to write is because they're the ones that are actually creating the forward momentum because it means they actually have a passion, a goal. They have something that they need. It actually creates that where you're right. It's like it's always the heroes are always playing like as you say like the straight man in the comedy troupe. Like they have to react to what the other person does.
So really, where the main story kind of sets up for issue 6 is that the villains now have a split because we've realized that Zemba is now turning on the leader, and she's now freeing one of the other powerful villains that has been sentenced to death. And it ends with what's going on with the villains right now. There's definitely problems in their camp, and
Mm.
of course, in true Lords of the Cosmos fashion, you start wondering, well, why the hell we haven't really seen much of her? We saw her in issue 2. She was featured in one of the backup stories where she gets actually mind controlled by a new villain and kind of embarrassed. And in the main story, it says, if you want to find out more about why Zemba's doing this, check out her story, Mistress Zemba, A Day in the Life, which goes back to the past where we just see 24 hours in the life of a supervillain. And we had an artist from Italy that drew it in a very Mobius style, very
Mm.
talented artist, Luigi Baroncelli. And we learn why Zemba has been waiting to betray her fellow villains. And it's a really cool story. And I love getting those little glimpses behind the curtain of if these people are supervillains, what the hell is their day to day like? And we show you. It has her having meetings. It has her getting her portrait painted. She goes to a sporting event. She has lunch, but it's all done in a very supervillain style. So it's
Hmm.
unsettling and it's crazy. And we learn why she has now decided to turn on her fellow villains and add a new wrinkle, which will, of course, reverberate back in the main story.
Right.
Um, so it's very fun to flesh some of these characters out. And Zemba definitely is going to be a fan favorite, I think, once they get to see what she does in the main issue, and then to see like why is she doing what she's doing. And I think we had a really good time explaining why she does this.
Say someone's listening to this or watching this a few months down the road,
Okay.
and they missed the Kickstarter, and they're like, I really want to get a hold of some of these issues. Is there a way that somebody can buy these issues uh, after the Kickstarter is over?
I'm glad you asked. So that's a great question because one of the great things with Kickstarter is now they have late pledges.
Okay,
So until I shut it off, almost every reward, including all the books, if you found this in a year, you should be able to go right to this campaign and still buy it.
cool.
Um, if it's not on here, and this is years in the future, I would say go to my Etsy store. I always sell the back issues there. So now I'm really happy with that change in Kickstarter because until I decide to shut it off, this Kickstarter remains active to sell product in perpetuity. Now, at
Wow.
some point, maybe the prices get out of whack with cost and I have to shut it down. But I would say your best bet, if you're hearing this in the future, would be to go back to the campaign and buy a late reward, or go to Lenox Art Emporium and just visit my Etsy store. That's where I sell prints, posters, and my back issues of comics.
And they can also go to you have a website too that would all the links would be on there as well. Yeah, and you got, as you say, you got some amazing artwork on there as well. You got a lot of just where you get 4 pages of art here as well.
Yeah.
You get tons and tons of things that people can be able to purchase.
Right.
But as of this recording, your Lord of the Cosmos issue number 5, and you do have catch up tiers on here.
Yep, I have
Um,
catch up tiers as physical and PDF. There's a stretch goal active. If we hit $8,000, all the physical backers get a sticker. And then we're going to have a couple more stretch goals if we keep the momentum going. But yeah, I tried to make this easy for returning backers to get all kinds of stuff, or completely new backers to catch up. Because obviously, the longer these series go, it is an issue. So someone discovers it on issue 7. There could be 6 prior issues plus an issue 0. It makes
right,
it a little tricky to get caught up. So I do
right.
try to make it easy to do that, because you never know when people are going to discover you.
Right. And I love that about that too, is that there's also, and as you mentioned before before we started recording, is that you have a lot of add-ons on here. So there's plenty of things. People can get stickers, they can get coffee mugs, they can get posters, you can get like dozens and dozens of things. You can get, yeah, pins, posters, stickers, mugs, all kinds of stuff on here. I love it. Yeah. So, Jason, if people want to learn more about you and your work, where's the best place they can go to?
I have a website that I've been actively maintaining for a dozen years, and that's just jasonlenox.com. Geez. And that is a kind of an archive of just art as I make it back from around 2011. Um, Instagram and Twitter are kind of easy places to see what I'm up to now. Um, and I'm just at Lennox Artist, which is right here. See where I'm pointing, right?
Yeah.
You can do that. And then on Facebook, I'm facebook.com/Jason Lennox Illustrator. So you can just go there.
Jason, you're gonna have to come on again, and when issue 6 comes out, which is gonna be imminent, right? You're gonna be putting
Well,
these out now once every few
I
months.
I don't know about every few months, but I need to get this book done. I mean, the book is done. Like, it's ready to print. It's ready to send that
Yeah.
PDF. So I did all that on the upfront. I need to get all the backers fulfilled, which is always a good bit of work. And then once that's complete, then I need to take a quick break and then get to assess issue 6 and then start putting that together. And then
Mm.
I'll build a timeline once I know that. But hopefully it won't take as long as issue 5.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jason. It was great talking to you again.
Yeah, Barney, thanks for having me on, and thanks as always for supporting Lords of the Cosmos. And I can't wait to read your review of issue 5.
Yeah, see, I'm looking forward to it too. So just so you know, I don't know if you ever. So when you get a chance, every 100 episodes, the 100th of every episode, I
Mm-hmm.
interview another Barney Smith
Wow, it's
as my
heavy.
as my every 100 episodes.
That
So
that
uh,
almost sounds like an Outer Limits, and then like you have to fight to the death to see who gets to remain Barney Smith, right? Like, nice to
it's
meet you,
been
Barney.
so.
Let's
Yeah.
fight. Like the new Barney Smith's like William Shatner. He's coming to kill you, right? Like,
Yeah, I always get nervous because I'm the one with the goatee. So I was like, oh, am I the bad
yeah.
guy?
Are we the baddies? Right? Are we the baddies?
All right, let me do the intro and we'll jump right into it, Jason. All right, here
Yeah.
we go.